You were not meant to be a slave to the grind. You were not meant to trade your life force for money. You can escape gravity. You can unlock your life. You got this. Let's go.
Hey, and welcome to Unlock Your Life. This is your host, Jennings Smith. And guys, I got a treat for you. If you are out there thinking about starting a new business, maybe getting into some businesses passively, you're not happy with what you're doing, and you're looking to expand your investments or maybe a career change, I've got Jon Ostenson from Franbridge Consulting. He is a top non-food franchise broker. So he consults with people, helps them to identify what's a good franchise, what would be a good fit, what are the ups and downs, the pitfalls, the benefits. And he's joined us today. So I'm extremely excited to have him on the show. Jon, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Jennings, appreciate you having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, man. So franchising, now, I didn't tell you this before the show, but I actually was involved in a franchise for a couple of years. So I know some of the good and the bad, and I want to get into that. But if you could tell us a little bit about like your story, how did you get started in this, and where do you see, who's your avatar? Who are the people that you can really help, that you see shine through starting a business in a franchise model?
Yeah. And we've got clients from their 20s to 60s, but I'd say certainly the sweet spot are those maybe in their mid 30s to mid 50s. And it's those that about 1/3 of our clients are looking to make a full-time change and maybe leave a corporate position. But about 2/3 are either existing business owners or maybe they're doctors or lawyers and they're going to keep their W-2 income going, but they want to get a side hustle going on the side. And, with franchising, it does provide for that ability to do what we call semi-absentee. I don't sugarcoat it. I won't say it's easy to stand up a business, but it is doable if you put a good manager in place and you're kind of tag teaming that manager with the franchisor. And so you're able to, they serve as a technical resource, keep them marching in the right direction. So, no, we help clients, male, female, mid 30s to mid 50s would definitely be the sweet spot. But I'll say there's more interest in business ownership now than ever before. And I think a lot of people are questioning the path they're on, or at least questioning their investments and looking to diversify. So we step in and help them in that case.
Okay, so the first question that I've got as an outsider looking in is sort of like, I want to start a business. Why would I not just start it from scratch, right? I don't have to pay a franchise fee. I don't have to pay ongoing royalties. I can do whatever I want. I've got complete flexibility. I'm not held to any standards. And with a franchise, I'm still pretty much starting the business from scratch. I mean, I know I've got their processes and systems, and there's definitely some built there, but I don't have a client base, right? So what's going to be my impetus to go that route versus let me just do it myself?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying for some people, franchising is not the best fit. Maybe they're too entrepreneurial. They want to put their thumbprints all over the business. But for so many, including those that have started their own businesses, they come to us and say, hey, I don't want to have to go through the learning curve. I'd rather someone else have done it for me. And to have that coach on the sidelines in that franchisor where you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. We're talking about a good franchisor. They're not all created equal, of course, but you also have a community of other franchisees where, you're exchanging best practices. They're living the business day in, day out. You've got a playbook that essentially how to get to profitability. You're not questioning, is this business even profitable potentially? And while you're still doing a lot of the lead generation, typically the franchise system is operating with a large data set on the marketing side. So again, you're able to step into more optimized campaigns day one. In some cases, they even have national accounts you can draft off of. So it's not entirely on you to drum up the business or figure out how to serve those clients. And so we have so many clients that will purchase franchises. They'll come back, within a year and buy additional territories or locations. Or they'll come back to us and say, all right, we've got a good manager in place running the business for us. We're ready for round 2. What's the next opportunity?
Gotcha. Okay, so let's say that I'm a doctor, I'm a real estate guy, I'm making money, and I'm looking for another income stream, but I'm not looking to be in the trenches. You talked about semi-passive or passive, getting a good manager, getting set up with that. What's a field if I'm like, I don't care what the business is, I just want it to be plug and play. What would you guide me towards?
Yeah, where we see a large number of those highly compensated W-2s, if you will, or existing business owners that don't have a whole lot of extra time, a lot of them are getting involved in what I call boring businesses. It's these non-sexy, property services type businesses, everything from insulation to dumpsters to gutters to, we actually did 7 deals in the gutter space last year. Multiple doctors, an attorney, an existing business owner, insurance guys. We did some a good bit in the Carolinas, actually in South Carolina. So I'd say property services was one where, again, you put the manager in place, you have more of a variable cost model. You're able to scale that up over time and expand it and potentially come back and buy another opportunity that you can then complement with that one. We're seeing a lot of interest in the health and wellness space. I'd say fitness is a little bit crowded. We're not doing as much there these days, but health and wellness, we're still doing a lot of oil changes. We've all been talking about a recession for the past decade. I think it's the most anticipated recession, but if the economy does go downhill a little bit in the second half of the year, some are predicting it might, what kind of business do you want to own at that point? And what I go back to is, what will you personally continue to spend on? It's things you care about, your kids, your pets, your aging parents, your homes, your health. So I think businesses that support these kind of categories, for the most part, stand to do well.
Gotcha. Yeah. My wife and I were talking last night about that. And she was talking about, something along the lines of oil changes or tires or bearings. I mean, I got a friend who's got a business, that's producing an ancillary product for fiber optic installations. And so those are the things that, people's tires wear out. They need to change their oil. Their gutters are overflowing. They got to get them cleaned. They need their pool cleaned. That kind of stuff. So talk to me about dumpsters specifically, because I was a construction guy for 15 years. I see that as a pretty cool business. Do you have a franchise that's in that dumpster line?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've sold out the whole state of South Carolina. So it's no longer available. But we've got a great one that, starting in the Southeast in Nashville has expanded. We've got clients engaged in a number of different states. But our client in South Carolina started off in Columbia, South Carolina, bought that market, killed it. Went to Charleston as the second market. Did very well there. Then went to Greenville, just came back last week and bought a few additional territories there. And nice thing about a business like that, now it's heavier on the CapEx side, obviously on the front end, but you're able to get some leverage. And of course, you can accelerate depreciation on a heavy CapEx asset, but you don't require a whole lot of employees. And so, oftentimes I'd say with franchising, what you're doing is you're bringing a white collar approach to a blue collar industry. It's not that you're totally reinventing the wheel, but you're coming in with a more professional approach where the marketing's 10 times better than, the bar is usually pretty low in a business like that. And then you've got someone's actually answering the phones. You've got great technology. You've got an app. You make it very customer focused. And again, you're operating from large data sets. And so, this business has gone in and they've gotten a 7-figure run rate on the revenue side within the first year, I believe, in every market they've entered. So, we love finding those niches. And I'll just give you another example with your construction background. We just had clients in Dallas last week buy a business where it's essentially temporary walls around construction sites. And so you're always doing renovations, whether it be in hospitals or airports or retail or, hospitality, all different types of end verticals. But around those construction sites, you usually need temporary walls to go up. And so this is a business where they set these up, they rent them kind of in an absentee manner where you're collecting the rent check every month, and then you break them down at the end. And so, it's the whole idea of riches in the niches. Our clients love finding these little areas of the market that aren't being well served and coming in and, bringing a brand presence to them.
Gotcha. Okay. And I'm going to take this a step further. So we got the startup model, we got the franchise model.
Yes.
Something that's really hot right now is purchasing businesses that are existing, right? There's in-place cash flow and there's revenue, and they can kind of manage and measure and see right away what their efficiencies are. And as an apartment guy, it's kind of like that. That's what I'm doing. I'm buying an existing business. Apartment complex is essentially a business, and I'm looking to see, how can I make this better? How can I increase occupancy, lower expenses? So how would the franchise model be superior to just going in and buying someone's existing business?
Yeah, great question. And I actually wrote a whole chapter on that in my book in non-food franchising. A couple of thoughts. One, resales can be a great opportunity, if it's the right one. And we certainly do some resales as well within the franchise arena, resales of franchise businesses. But so oftentimes, and this is what I'm seeing on the ground where it gets really practical and not just theoretical, so many of my clients, it's threading a needle. They can't find a resale opportunity that's a strong business with a real reason why that person's selling it. It's a good business. They're probably hanging on to it, but sometimes they're retiring or what have you. But then they realize there's a whole lot of people looking at that business. The price kind of gets bid up a little bit. It's hard to find a good deal, or they've overvalued it. And there's still risk, especially in a non-franchise resale, because all of a sudden you step in, well, what happens when an ownership change takes place? People potentially leave the business. They don't like change. Employees don't. So what if you lose some of your best talent? All of a sudden, you're holding the bag. You paid a premium for the business. You don't have that franchisor supporting you on the sideline. What if you lose a key customer? Again, it depends on the type of industry, but there's still risk associated with change happening. And so, yeah, on paper it looks great. Hey, we've got cash flow, we've got employees, it's turnkey, we can step in. But sometimes when you pull back the covers, whether it be that or whether it be how did they really categorize owner's discretionary in the P&L and understanding, the numbers, sometimes that can be a challenge. So again, we're not against resales. We participate in resales. I just think oftentimes it truly is the needle in the haystack in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, so your argument would be there's more risk in the purchase price versus building the value in yourself, but you're also mitigating the risk with having the proven systems and marketing and a model that we know works as long as you perform.
Exactly right. That's well said. And what's interesting, Jennings, and this kind of touches on the startup side too. I mean, when you look at the sheer data that's out there, 92% of franchise locations are still in business after 5 years. Well, that's roughly 3 times or more, depending on which survey you look at, versus a true startup. So again, it de-risks the proposition quite a bit. Secondly, within franchising, there was a study done recently. They looked at 2,000 transactions over a 10-year period of like-kind industries, both franchised and non-franchised. And what they found when they compared apples to apples as well as they could was that franchise businesses traded at an exit multiple 1.5 times non-franchised. So found that really interesting that the resale value is there when the buyer comes looking for it and they see the value in it. So again, not in any way against resales. I just think there's a lot more to the story than sometimes initially it appears.
Gotcha. Yeah. So from my personal story, I was a single family builder, built some custom homes, did some renovations, additions, and about it's probably been 7 or 8 years ago, a franchise approached me, and their model was a little different where they were selling a franchise, but their model was a assimilation model. So they would go to an existing contractor in the market and say, hey, do you want to join us? And you think, oh yeah, cool. They're going to buy into me. And no, you got to pay them a franchise fee and you got to pay them royalties. But as I looked into it and I was able to secure the master territory for South Carolina and half of North Carolina and doing that. And as I looked into it, it was really helping me with a lot of things that I had not been able to figure out. And there's some business guys out there that are better than me, right? But I was, atrocious with my payables, keeping up with that, keeping up with collections, a process for the project manager, project management training. How do I get a project manager to run a job from start to finish versus me as the owner? I bid everything. I made all these promises and now I got somebody else executing and maybe they're screwing it up and we're going over budget. And so it was just extremely difficult business to scale. And even with the franchise, I'll say custom construction is a hard business. There's money in it for sure, but it's very hands-on. But what that did was after a couple of years, I increased my revenue by 2x. I increased my profitability. I had project managers running it and I was able to sell my franchise. I sold it to my project manager. He stepped up and bought me out. And then I was able to sell my master territory. I'd opened up 3 or 4 other franchises. And so, I took a business that really, if I had tried to sell, if I'm honest with myself, it was pretty much worthless and was able to sell it, not for a ton, but, a few $100,000 and my master territory for more than that. And so it helped me to leverage their platform to jump into multifamily real estate full time and do what I'm doing now. And so I see the value of franchising probably more than some, but I mean, there was definitely things I didn't like about it as well. The royalties, they're taking their rip right off of the gross top line revenue. They don't care how profitable you are. Most franchisees or franchises are taking it off the top. So that can become a large portion of your profits, especially in construction where, they're only making 10, 11% net. And so if they're taking 3 or 4%, that's a huge piece of your net profits. And then, the mandates that they lay down and the leadership, and you're aligning your entrepreneurial self with someone else's vision, which I think you hit the nail on the head. Not everybody can do that or wants to do that. And I think you really need to look at your personality type. Are you willing to submit to the leadership and the CEO and the way that they're going to take this company? And you look at stuff like Papa John's, you got a nut job running that franchise and bad press and bad marketing. I mean, and Papa John's still selling pizzas, so I guess they survive. But it's kind of like you got to take those things into consideration. You're not an island anymore. You're connected with all your other franchisees and their reputations. how they're running their businesses. And if they don't do well, that ship's going to sink altogether. So I think you got to recognize that as you're looking at these opportunities.
I think you hit it on the head, Jennings. And that's very well said. I think that, and that's why we've designed our exploration process the way we have to get you as much information, to go in to that final decision making. And I've been a franchisor of a very large franchise system. I'm a multi-brand franchisee myself, so I've come at it from both, multiple angles. And as a franchisor, I mean, when I look out there, it was my goal to keep my franchisees happy. Last thing I wanted to do was tick them off and have them revolt on me. So, but when we work with our clients, we look at the franchisor and that leadership team and their track record. If they have more industry experience than franchise experience, then I want to see that they brought in franchise leadership around them that has been there, done that, supported franchisees in the past. I just think that's so important because that is a business partner. And the big question, you hit it, is what value are you getting for the royalty payments that you're paying? And will they be innovating? Will they be going after national accounts? Will they be essentially lowering your cost of, versus you running the business on your own without them, whether it be bulk buying, and that can even be on services. But you've got to see the value and know that going in.
So can you walk me through with specifics, just so that my listeners can understand this? Walk me through, like, let's pick a franchise. If you want to pick gutters or dumpsters or shelving or whatever you want to pick, let's pick one.
Yeah.
And kind of walk us through that. Like, what does it cost to buy the license? What does it cost to start it up? How long does it take to scale it? And then what can you expect in year 1, 2, 3, 4? What can you expect on an exit? Can we walk through an example like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned gutters. I'll do that one. We had 7 clients buy into it last year, very familiar with kind of the financials around it. And I'll say that we always tell our clients, hey, let's take a conservative approach to whatever the item 19, that financial representation in the FDD is, and haircut it, make sure there's enough meat on the bone. But in the gutter example, that's a business all in investment. You're right around $200,000. We'll call it $225 to play conservative. That's your franchise fee of $50,000. They do make you buy 2 territories without one, so that would be $50,000 plus $40,000. So your $90,000 franchise fees. You've got startup cost and you've got working capital. Franchisor usually builds in about 3 months of working capital into your estimate. So all that brings you to roughly $200,000. Essentially all in. And some of our clients are using SBA loans, some are using cash, some are using an old retirement plan. There are ways to do that without hitting the taxes. Some are using HELOCs. It's different ways of funding it. So $200,000 with this one.
Hold up. So $200K, and we've got an SBA loan. This stuff qualifies for an SBA loan, so we could get like 80, 90% financing on that.
I'd say oftentimes what we see is 75, 80%. So you're probably,
so you're really only having a couple with $40K in liquid cash if you went the SBA route.
Yeah, let's call it 50. Yep. Okay. We'll play conservative. Say 50 and then 150 you're financing.
Okay. And now if the SBA won't finance it, do you have financing options for people too?
Yeah, we don't in-house. We do have some alternative lenders as well. I mean, usually for most of our clients' businesses, SBA has not been an issue. The one case that we run into sometimes is maybe they make too much and have too high of a net worth. And so that being said, they would have other options of how to fund it.
Okay. So let's just say we got, now does the SBA, I assume they send some of that, 90 of that to the franchisor, and then you get the other 60K plus your 50K. And do they give you all that money right at the front, or is it released in tranches?
Yeah, oftentimes you would pay $50,000 in cash for the first location, and then that second location you could finance once that SBA loan hits, usually a month later. And so you can use that SBA loan for your other startup cost and working capital. Okay. And you can pay. It usually is taken in a lump sum, but you can pay it back over time. It doesn't have, without penalty. It's not that you have to wait and pay it all back at one time.
Yeah, what are those usually, like 7-year loans? Is that right?
Yeah, it varies whether it be a 7A loan or an express loan. We're seeing more 7A loans these days. And so we work with a group that works with franchise-friendly lenders that will bring terms from several banks to the table for our clients. So they usually have options, and some of that is the tenure of the loan as well.
Okay. But generally, we're talking 7-8% interest and 7 to 10-year term?
Yeah. The interest rate used to be lower, but it has gone up just like everything else, and we hope that over time it will go down.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
You're probably more like 9% right now. Honestly, it's a little bit higher. So, but no, with this franchise system, the gutter one, and this is gutter installs. It's not all gutter cleaning. In fact, the majority is gutter installs. But the residential and commercial, they're averaging $1.7 million in revenue for those 2 territories across their franchise system, and they give all the detail in their item 19, the breakout. The prior year, Jennings, they were doing $1.2 million in revenue. So you're seeing some really good comp system-wide growth, and this is part of the reason we've had 7 clients buy into it. Last year was the bottom line margin, you're around 28, 29% EBITDA. So even if you take, call it 550 on the bottom line. So even if you take a conservative approach and let's say you only do 3/4 as well or 50% as well, still a lot of meat on the bone. Now, from a ramp up standpoint,
so you're saying 1.7, that's not year one though, right?
no, that would be the average. So some of their franchisees have operated for several years.
Okay.
Most have not operated more than 3 years. The vast majority would be under 3 years. They've really taken off in growth. Last year, they had one franchisee do 1.2 million in the very first year. One did 2 million in the first year. I would call that an anomaly. We're not going to build our pro forma around that, but it shows that fast ramp up is doable out of the gate.
But you would say, I mean, maybe what, 400K or 500K is your average first year person?
Yeah, I'd probably say with this one, maybe 500,000-600,000, maybe a third of what they eventually ramp up to.
Okay, so they're taking home maybe 200,000, and their note is what, 3,000 a month. So yeah, they're definitely creating some value there for sure.
Yeah, and from a return standpoint, I mean that's obviously attractive. 200,000 return on a $200,000 investment, and then you have an asset you can sell down the road. But I always go back to, hey, it's not a passive investment. There's going to be involvement, even if you're managing the manager. I don't want to ever sugarcoat that. There is so, some of our clients ultimately realize they don't have enough bandwidth to even manage the manager, but others get pretty excited. And I'll say the gutter business. I mean, there's a reason why we did 7 of those last year. I mean, that EBITDA of 28-29% on the bottom line is better than a lot of other options out there. A lot of times you see that closer to 20%. Yeah, but a lot of it depends on the industry and then the business and kind of how it flows as well.
But I'm thinking, if you're out there listening, maybe you have money and maybe you have skills, and so I think that if you're an operator and you're like, oh, well, shoot, I don't have 50K liquid and I couldn't get this loan probably, but I know gutters or I know install, I'm in construction already, whatever. Like if you have somebody that is willing to partner with you, throw down the money, maybe you can't do 50K, but you can throw in 10 or 15K. He throws in the rest. He helps you get the loan and you're both on the note and you split the business 50-50 or 75-25, whatever. And now that guy has a way to really passively earn. You've got a way to build yourself a future. And I think that people need to think creatively because a lot of times, I know I used to look at businesses and franchises and I would just look at the sticker price, right? It's like, I can't afford that. I don't have 200,000 liquid. I don't have, and then what if I can't make the payment every month, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that if you have that financial backer that they like you, they got a relationship with you, they trust you, people are looking for places to invest, to put their money. And this is kind of the avenue that if I were to do something like this at this point in my life, I would be looking for a rock star operator that's going to take full leadership and run this thing. And I'm just more of a financial advisor and backer on the back end.
100%. And we hear that all the time. Our clients, where do we find a good operator? I think that's probably the number one question. And we do have a national recruiting firm that's now helping them find operators. But I'd say for the longest time, that's been the question of, hey, this all sounds great. Where do I find a good manager? So we kind of coach them through that and how do you align incentives and such. But no, partnerships are extremely common. You hit the nail on the head, Jennings.
Okay. So we're into this thing. Let's say we're in year 5. Okay. And we're hitting the average. We're hitting 1.7. And we're making 30%, 28% on that. So, we're netting 500K. What kind of multiple do you think that we can exit that business for at this point?
Yeah. So if you truly want to sell it and you're making those numbers, what we use for property services, oftentimes it's like a 0.75 to 1.25 of sales, which translates to typically a 3 to 5 EBITDA on the bottom line. So, you're probably looking at roughly conservatively, and I'll go really conservative here, but maybe a $1.5 million business.
$1.5 million. So yeah, it's like, okay, if you could do this, let's say you only own half of it because you don't have any capital, or you only put up the capital and you didn't actually make it an active investment. You're talking about making an income stream of maybe 100 the first year, 150, 200, up to 250. And then you're also looking for a pretty large chunk at the end, or you could obviously buy more territories or scale it if you want. You can't make those kind of returns passively in real estate. Now, I will say real estate is a lot more stable, right? Because the business can be run into the ground, right? You can make a bad partnership. You can get in there and be like, man, I hate this. I'm not good at sales and I lost $200,000. So I think that with real estate, it's more like if you buy something for $1 million and you run into the ground, well, it's still worth 900,000. It's still worth 800,000. It's not, you're not destroying the value like you can on a business. So I just want to make that clear to everybody. I'm not saying this is apples to apples, because it's not. But you see how with real estate, it's like there's a limit, right? You can only raise that rent so high. If it's at market rent is $900 and you're at 700, you can get it to 900, but you can't get it to 1,500. You can't add another 100 units versus like, hey, we can scale from 1.7 to 2.2. We can open up a second territory. I mean, there's really no limit. We can add ancillary services. Maybe we're going to do Christmas lights in the winter. Maybe we're going to do monthly gutter cleaning. There's all sorts of ways to value add a business that is not as easy to do in real estate.
You're exactly right. And, oftentimes, with clients, maybe when they get up there to the edge of the diving board and they're like, do we do this? Do we make the jump? And, that's a very normal feeling, of course. And one thing we talk about is what's that potential downside? I mean, to your point, what if things do go downhill and don't go as planned and you get 6 months into the business, a year into the business, and you say, hey, this isn't what I expected, or I no longer have an interest in it. What are your options? And I'd say oftentimes, adjacent franchisees can be a great target to sell the business to. I personally own a driveway company franchise as a franchisee. We bought up two other franchisees in Atlanta. One had an illness in the family. One had to move for their wife's job. And so we bought their franchisees, gave them an exit, allowed us to expand. So you kind of have a natural buyer there. But you also, let's just say, I just wanted to sell my location. Of course, I can put it out there on BizBuySell or, go the broker route, or I can ask the franchisor who has shown interest in this business in my area over the past 5 years that you've had to say no to. There's an instant list of people I can call as potential leads. So you do have options, and it could be that, hey, if things didn't go as planned, I could still sell any assets with that business, whether it be vehicles or equipment or supplies, to other franchisees. Maybe I take a haircut on that, but I'm not totally out.
Okay, so, and we didn't talk about this, but what about like ongoing royalties with, let's just stick with the gutter company. What are they hitting us up for every month?
Yeah, 7%, but the 28% that I quoted would be net of the 7%.
Okay, so 7% of the 1.7 million.
Yeah.
So 100 grand roughly.
But they also have a great call center that is answering my calls. And so if someone were to, and you pay a small additional fee on the call center, it's incremental, but ultimately, that's a position I don't have to staff on my team. And if they lose a call center agent, they're going to replace them. It's not something I have to go recruit for. So between that and the marketing value that they're providing, they're running all the digital ads for me. I'm doing some organic marketing, grassroots, but they're taking care of the heavy lifting on that. Yeah, they're now.
Now, am I paying for the marketing in addition to the royalty?
Typically, you're paying for the actual like Google spend or social spend, but then they're covering the essentially the staffing of the home office to support those marketing efforts and create the collateral, the marketing collateral.
And I'm paying for the time or the service of the sales call person, but I don't have to manage them. And now what about accounting, right? How do they know how much money I'm making, and how do they protect their brand, making sure that I'm paying my vendors and all that stuff?
Yeah, it usually gets run through the systems. That there's a centralized system that most franchise systems would have, in which you're recording all of your bookings and the sales, and they're doing the processing within the system. Again, that's something you're not having to go out there and
so they're collecting. Are they collecting the money?
Yeah, it usually runs through there, either that or they have visibility into the reporting side of it. And then they have an ACH set up where they automatically debit your account every week or every month. And again, it's all part of the franchise agreements. You know what you're getting into up front. It's all laid out.
But they're pretty much doing my books for me, correct? I mean, or am I doing my own books?
Again, as you said, it's usually top line. So they know what that revenue number is. And so they're essentially doing an automated invoice. And they do track all of what they debit over time. But no, I mean, typically you're still working with a bookkeeper. Now, they may have a bookkeeping team that most of their franchisees use. Usually you're not mandated to use them. You could use your own bookkeeper if you wanted to. But they do have visibility into the revenue side, not the expense and P&L side.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, because that's the number that they care about, because that's the number they're getting paid on. So they're going to track that. And I like that they're going to collect, maybe centrally. And I think that it's also nice to be able to compare and contrast with other franchisees' data. If you're sharing that, like, are my expenses out of whack? Are they in line? Am I paying too much for vehicle maintenance? Am I paying too much for materials? Now, are they helping me with securing materials?
Yeah, very oftentimes that's, and typically they're able to buy in bulk. So it depends on the business. I mean, there's some where it's, hey, let's just go to Lowe's or Home Depot, that's easier. But there's some where there's even intellectual property. I mean, we just had a client today sign, actually in your state of South Carolina, ironically here up in Spartanburg and Greenville, for a floor coating business that has intellectual property. They have a patent around it. It's a green epoxy related type flooring. I won't try to spell out the technicalities, but essentially it's very green. It's good for the environment. It won't kill your pets or your kids if they lick it or what have you. So yeah, that's product that would be sourced because it is IP through the company, but they can source it in bulk, get you value pricing.
Okay. And so where do you see people go wrong when they're looking into this and they're digging around on biz, buy, sell? Yeah. What pitfalls are they making? What serious mistakes are people making?
Yeah, I think they don't ask enough questions and they get too excited about an opportunity without really digging in. I mean, the good thing about a franchise, again, is you get to talk to other owners that have been there and done that. They're living it before you even make the purchase. And so you can ask them questions. They can open up their books, share their experiences. And of course, some franchisees will validate better than others. Others will be somewhat guarded with information, but a lot of them will open up and talk to you. So I'd say that's a big thing, understanding the franchisor. Again, those criteria that we go through, have they been there, done that as supporting franchisees? What's their vision for the future? Once you're in a franchise system, where I see pitfalls, just having, when I served as president of Shelf Genie, I saw a sea of owners across North America running the same business in their markets day in, day out. Our best franchisees, and this sounds cliche, but it was true, were the ones that followed the system most closely, the ones that didn't come in and pretend to be the smartest guy in the room, but the ones that followed our lead. And that's why you buy into a franchise system. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to go in and it's all about executing. And so a good franchisor is going to let you test things, test different marketing vehicles or what have you. But for the most part, you want to place your bets where that franchisor has already laid it out and proven the model.
That's what we used to say as a regional partner for my franchise when we bring in a new franchisee. Remember, these guys are established business guys. They've been running their own company. And we would say, listen, for the first year, focus on learning the way that we do it and implementing those. And then if after a year and you understand the fundamentals of this thing, you want to try and improve the process, you want to bring things to the table and mastermind about that stuff, then let's do it. Because when guys would come in, right, and they're like, well, why do you do this? And we shouldn't be doing this. We need to do it this way. And we've already run into that brick wall. We've already, burnt our hand on that stove. So I totally agree with that. And now you've written a book. You mentioned it, but non-food franchising. You've written a book where people can read through this, lay this out. And, I don't see why you wouldn't use a broker because they're not paying you, right? You're getting paid out of that initial franchise fee. The franchisor is kicking you back your fee, correct?
Yeah, whether you go directly to a brand or you go through us, you pay the same franchise fee. So it's a very clean model. We work with over 600 franchise companies, part of the largest brokerage here in North America. So no, it should be a no-brainer because if you do a lot of Googling, you're going to see every business putting their best foot forward, all their marketing efforts. But if you understand what's going on behind the system, and I've been blessed to do more deals than anyone else in America the last couple of years, so I get to see firsthand what's resonating with different backgrounds around the country, as well as I've got relationships with these franchisors, and I know what shifts are taking place, that you can't find on the website.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I was going through my due diligence, right, you get the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, which is, hundreds of pages of legal jargon. Yeah. And they're pretty scary, honestly. I mean, there's a lot in there. They own you. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They own that brand. They're going to protect that brand and you're going to fall in line or they're going to revoke your privileges. But something that I did that was super helpful was I called multiple branches and offices. I called failed franchisees, like, why didn't it work for you? And talked to the top producers and talked to the guys that are, they've been in it for many years and some of the stuff they're sick of. And they're going to tell me, this is the good, this is the bad, this is what you can expect. And I think that you got to do that, right? It's just like calling references. And in the FDD, at least on my FDD, they had to disclose every single franchisee, right? And so they can't hide, well, these are the guys we don't want you to talk to, and these are the guys that we want you to talk to. And I would recommend, if you're doing this, to talk to those people, visit their offices, check out the culture, because it is more than the money, it's your attention, it's your focus, it's your future, it's where you're going, and it's a big decision.
Absolutely. No, we have a chapter in the book on the FDD, and there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. And once you understand the why behind a lot of the provisions, then it makes sense, because you mentioned this earlier, but as a franchise owner, you've made a big investment here. You want to know that you're protected from some other franchisee going off the rails and hurting the brand. So the franchisor needs to have rights to be able to step in a situation like that And ultimately, it protects you as an adjacent franchisee. So, no, you're exactly right. And no, in the book, we published it a couple months ago. I've had a great response, but we pack a lot of content into a very small amount of space, about 100 pages, easy read. We'd love to give a free digital copy to any of your listeners. If they go out to our website, we'll have our assistant reach out and share with them both an audio copy as well as a PDF copy. Or if you go out to Amazon, you can purchase it, and 100% of profits go to a great nonprofit that we support.
Okay, guys, so that's non-food franchising. And what is the best way for them to connect with you, Jon? Through your website?
Certainly follow us on LinkedIn and social media, but I'd say come out to franbridgeconsulting.com, sign up for our monthly newsletter. We put out some great content. And then after that, our assistant will reach out to you and share a copy of the book, as well as see if you'd like to have a further conversation. So we'd be more than happy to engage with any of your listeners, Jennings, and have an initial call and talk a little bit more.
Guys, it's Jon Ostenson, Ostenson, Ostenson. You can Google him, look him up on LinkedIn, connect with him on social, grab that book if this is something that you're looking into doing. But Jon, dude, it's been really fun. I appreciate you being on the show. It's been fun chatting and learning more about this stuff. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck, and thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jennings.
All right, guys, until next week, I appreciate you being here, and don't forget to unlock your life. Peace.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.